Hello. I really like this one because if I raise my eyebrows, the eyebrows raise. Kids, this is the introduction lesson to informative writing. Okay, lots of good information. This is so fun. What if I went all the way over in there? Okay, here we go. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is go over to your Google Classroom and go ahead and open up your Digital Writer's Notebook. This is a new one. And open up that template for week 10, lesson 1. And this is where we are going to get started. So the first thing you're going to see is this slide, and it says Informative Writing Introduction. And I like to start with the nuts and bolts of the unit. What is this unit going to entail? What are the parts and pieces, and what are the expectations? So let's just begin here. Basically, this unit has 2 parts. Part 1 is going to be to develop an informative speech, comparing and contrasting 2 young adults who are making a difference. Part 2 is to use that speech outline to write an informative paper using compare-contrast text structure. And it's going to include text features like photos, captions, bold words, and content-specific vocabulary. So you're going to do 2 things here. Part 1, you're doing a speech. Part 2, you're doing a paper. So let's start with part 1, which is the informative speech. So for those of you who want to see what the rubric is, you can click on that and kind of go through it. I'm not going to focus on that today. As we get closer to the end, we'll focus on it more. So informative speaking is a powerful and important tool. And when it is done well, information can provide a new perspective or increase our knowledge around a topic. The purpose of our 6th grade informative speech is to raise awareness about young people who are making a difference. And your job is going to be to grab the attention of your audience, convince the audience that the information that you're sharing is important, and it's important for them to know. Present the information in a clear way using that compare-contrast structure, and deliver it in a manner that your audience is tuned in and learns something new from you. So let's go over the logistics. We're going to use a 4-step approach. Step 1, we'll do the first speech together as a class, and I'm going to model every single step of this. We'll deliver a speech using WeVideo on the same 2 youth, Chandra Star and Shuham Banjare. So we're going to do that all together. And it's really going to be a class effort. Step 2 is where you're going to go a little bit on your own. And you'll have some voice and choice. You'll pick 2 different youths who are making a difference from our digital bookcase, and you're going to create the same informative speech. And you're going to do every step independently, and you'll be using WeVideo. Step 3, we're going to go back to that first speech and use the outline to create a compare-contrast paper. But our paper is going to have some nonfiction text features. For example, it will have a photograph, and it will have a caption. It's going to have some content-specific vocabulary. We're going to use bold words and headings. So it will look very much like a magazine layout. And I'm going to model every single step of this. And then step 4, you'll be on your own again with your own 2 youths who are making a difference. So if we look at it, step 1 we do together, step 2 you do on your own, step 3 we do together, step 4 you do on your own. And that is the nuts and bolts of what we are doing. We're going to go to this next slide, And I'd like you to pull up your own digital notebook, and I want you to copy down these notes. Or if you have a hard copy notebook, I want you to write at the top of the page, what is informational writing? And these are the notes I would like you to write. At a basic level, an informative speech delivers knowledge. The presenter becomes an expert and shares knowledge with others. And so in your notebook, that is what you are going to write if you are keeping a digital copy. At a basic level, it shares knowledge. The presenter becomes an expert. Okay, then we'll move on to the next slide. And this is, again, I want you, if you are a hard copy notebook, just write this halfway down the page. Put a line in between these. What are the 3 things that every speech must have? And there are 3 really big pillars. Number 1 is it has to be accurate. Informative speeches must be accurate. Even though you're not arguing a side, when you share information, information sharing is not neutral. You're sharing what you want to share. So you want to be as accurate as possible because that is how you are going to gain trust in your audience. It's kind of like if you were telling a story, perhaps you're in an argument with, or you're sharing a fight that you had with someone, and you're telling them the whole story and you're telling them everything that person did, but you kind of leave out that you borrowed their sweatshirt and ripped it. Well, then you're not being accurate in your information sharing. So we're not going to do that. We're going to be as accurate as we can. Super important. The next thing is to have a clear organizational structure. Now, writers get to make this choice how they want to present information. Unfortunately, in this instance, you as the writer do not get to make this choice. This choice has been made for you. In the 6th grade, we do a compare contrast text structure, which is fine. We are going to do a great job with it. But that is a really important piece of it. We're going to be comparing and contrasting. Our speech is going to have an introduction. It's going to inform the audience how they're alike. It's going to inform the audience how the 2 agents are unique, and it will have a conclusion. So it will be super structured. And then the last thing is it interesting? Remember, you want your audience to get excited about your topic, and you want them to care. So we're going to avoid slang words. We're going to avoid overly complicated terms that the audience won't know. We want to keep our audience engaged. Okay, so in your writer's notebook right now, I want you to go to that next page and let me present this. And so I just want you to write accurate. Make sure everything that you are saying is correct. Clear organizational structure. I want you to write intro, how alike, how different, conclude. And interesting, I just put don't be boring. I don't know. That's the only way I could think of it. Or, I mean, you could write whatever you want. You could write stay engaging, be excited. Whatever you want to write there, go for it. Go to this next part. I just want to quickly touch base on this idea of close reading. So when you are close reading, you are really hitting a text multiple times. And there are many reasons why you would do that. But at the heart of it, you really want to understand what the text is about. So typically it's 3 times. And the first time you're just trying to gather, well, what is the text saying? Second time, how is the text saying it? And what does this mean? So we're really trying to get to understand Chandra and Shubham. And we want to make sure that because we're trying to become experts. So we're going to hit this text multiple times. Now, you've already gone twice. You did it, you read the text the first time when you did the compare contrast essay. You read the text the second time on Wednesday, where you also watched videos on the two young people making a difference. And now we're going to go back the third time, and we're not going to read it word for word. We're just going to kind of scan it and just gather information. So go into your writer's notebook, and the way that knowing that we have to do a compare, or we're going to do a compare and contrast, I shouldn't say have to, knowing that we have this wonderful opportunity to write a compare contrast paper. Whenever you are going to do that, what I want you to do after you read a couple times, twice, I want you to think, okay, how are these two uh, people or animals or whatever it is that you're comparing, how are they alike? Before you dive into the ways in which they're unique, I want you to think, well, what do they do that's alike? So when I think of Chandra and Shubham, I want to say they are both alike because they had an event that triggered them into action. And that kind of goes along with that TED Talk, that most people have some type of event that triggers them into action. And then what is the goal? They both had a goal in mind, which had to do with this equality. Chandra wanted food equality, and Shubham wanted access to print for blind people. He didn't think money should be an obstacle there. And then they both made a significant difference for people in need. And so those are the things that we are going to put right in the middle, that they both did. Trigger event with a goal and made a big difference. I'm going to very briefly go through these articles, and I'm going to come up with some information that is unique to Chandra. So Chandra Starr knows what it's like to be homeless. When she was 5 years old, she lived in a tent with her mother. Chandra, and you could see I'm skipping because this is the third time reading it. Chandra and her mom would ride bikes to soup kitchens, but most of the food came from cans and boxes that were loaded with sugar and fat. Chandra soon became overweight. As a result, she started to show early signs of a disease called diabetes 2. Fortunately, Chandra and her mom weren't homeless for long. They moved into an apartment after a few months. Chandra was able to eat more nutritious foods like vegetables. Her health improved. She is now helping others who are homeless and don't have access to healthy foods. In January, she started that Million Penny Project. She put donations in schools. Her goal was to raise 10,000. She ended up raising 19. Awesome. So now I'm going to go to that second article, and I'm going to look where she was in the news. And most of the time, you want to just check, okay, the Post Independent, this looks like a newspaper. I'm assuming this is a reliable source. There she is. And I'm going to just read this a little bit to gather more information, because remember, I'm trying to become an expert on her, or at least have enough information that it's going to help me deliver an informative speech. And what's interesting about this is you can see that there was an article written on her, and there are some vocabulary words, and maybe we'll use some of those. So keep that in mind when we get to that content vocabulary. So Chandra Star's getting new recognition 6 months after she wrapped up her Million Penny campaign for local produce. Star, now an eighth grader at St. Stephen's Catholic School in Glenwood Springs, was featured in Scholastic News list 8 coolest kids we met in 2014, a roundup of the most inspiring, courageous, and innovative kids featured in the organization's magazine this year. And so I'm just going to scroll down. Nicknamed the Gardener, she was recognized for her efforts to raise 10,000 a million pennies for growing food forward. The campaign ran, raising more than 19,000. So what I'm liking is that I'm seeing kind of the same information. That's a significant boost, allowing it. They were able to build more than 100 gardens and produce 8,000 pounds of food. And she was a significant part of that. She has a huge impact on people's lives who are hungry, who want to get to know how to grow food. It was a personal mission. Who was diagnosed with early stage diabetes and struggled to find food that was both affordable and healthy. So that is that key, that this idea that your food choices, what you're actually able to, you know, feed your body with, the nutrients that you put into your body, is dependent on income. That's a really interesting concept that she has learned. And then I'm also going to watch the video on her. And when I finished doing those 3 things, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the Venn diagram and I'm going to come up with some kind of bigger statements to write.
And our Making a Difference report tonight deals with exactly that topic, combating poverty in America. It's a subject Ann Curry has reported on for us over the years as part of our team. And tonight she reports on an extraordinary teenager who has overcome great obstacles in her own life and is now determined to help others who find themselves in a position she knows all too well. Tonight, Ann Curry tells us how this teenager is making a difference.
If you've ever questioned the value of a penny, you need to meet Chandra Starr, who's found a way to turn all this zinc and copper into the equivalent of gold. Organic fresh produce for the homeless and hungry in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. There you go. Thank you. 13 years old in junior high, helping the needy is an accomplishment. But that is only where Chandra's story begins. 7 years ago, Chandra was one of them. Hungry and homeless, for a time living in a tent in the mountains with her mother, Kim. What do you really remember about being here when you were so small?
Just the cold nights and snuggling up with my mom and the dog.
I'm trying to imagine what this must have been like for you to...
It was devastating, really.
The food was appreciated, but offered few fruits and vegetables. Chandra gained weight and was diagnosed as pre-diabetic.
I'd cry every time I went to the grocery store. Every time I had to decide on what to cook for dinner.
When they got back on their feet last fall, Chandra wanted to build a vegetable garden for the needy, raising money through a Million Penny project. It's a lot of pennies.
There is a lot of pennies everywhere. You can find them on the ground. You might be collecting spare change.
All around town, the coins are now coming in.
I think it's incredible, and I think it's a great thing she's doing.
Younger ones like fourth grader Nico Polar are inspired to start their own penny projects.
One of my family members has cancer, and I think that it would be a really, really good idea to raise money for him.
If Chandra reaches her goal, her garden will provide 2,000 people with fresh produce for an entire season.
I was so happy that she picked something that was so close to both of us in a way that maybe she knew, maybe she didn't.
Do you think that because of your homelessness here, that maybe something good came out of it?
We've learned that we could handle anything. if we just had the courage and the strength to get through it.
Her hope untarnished by her experience, now using that strength to help so many others, one penny at a time.
I have a sense of who Chandra is and what she has done. So now I'm going to start writing some notes on under her name. And I'm going to write Chandra Star saw that eating unhealthy foods can lead to serious health issues. And then I'm going to go, so that was kind of her trigger. She realized not everyone can afford to eat healthy. And so, sorry, this is a little big, so I'm going to have to shrink it down a little. And so then what did she do about it? Well, she started to raise money. So she raised money for a group called Growing Food. And it was $19,000, enough to pay for 91 gardens. Okay, so those are my notes right now on Chandra, and that is where we're going to end today. When we pick up again, we're going to go to our other youth who made a difference, Shubham. Okay, thank you so much, writers, for hanging in there with me. I know this introductory lesson was a long one. All right, thanks. Bye.